Hello, everybody. We are back with On the Raritan. I'm your host, Peter Slattery. We have Adam here today. Unfortunately, Max could not join us. He is in the midst of midterms. I know he just had an a cappella competition, and they're finishing up season two, right, Adam? So, he is extremely
Mhm.
busy, and the rest of the e-board for season two is also busy. But we're not talking about that right now. We're going to talk about something extremely important, and that is that this is a very special episode. And the reason is, as of February 7th, 2025, me, Adam, and Max's goal of casting, filming, editing, putting out to YouTube, and just in general producing the show has been fulfilled. The season in its entirety is available for you guys to watch on our YouTube channel, Rutgers Survivor. As it stands right now, I don't know how else you would not know that because this is on our YouTube channel too. But if you're curious and this is the first video I've ever seen, go watch the season. It was a joy to make. And I guess, yeah, from my personal perspective, just now that it's pretty much done, we had the finale watch party. Just overall, so pleased with it. So thankful that the process, as you know, Adam, went relatively smooth. Maybe a few hiccups there, maybe a few like I didn't think that would happen there, but overall, just an amazing experience. And I just want to give a special thanks to you, Adam, because Max obviously helped us so much, but we were really the two that started it, and then we kind of needed him at the end, like so we needed to get him together. We needed all three of us to do it, but it was really me and you in the beginning there. So thank you for seeing this through. I'll let you say a little word
Mhm.
too, but I'll just go through what this episode's going to be because this might
Of
feel
course.
different because this is the end, so might be a little more casual. I don't know, might not be as structured, but yeah, like I said, huge thanks to you, Adam. Wouldn't have wanted to do it with anybody other than you to start. Amazing shout out to Max. He did so much for us. He managed the finances. He managed the finances. He was like pretty much the camera director, and he also did the editing of the first four episodes, which is absolutely huge. And he did way more than that, but that's stuff that comes to mind. And yeah, thank you to the cast. If you're listening, we had a blast. It was amazing. But that's enough for me for now for that. The structure of this, like I said, is a little bit more loose. I will let Adam give his piece as he rightly deserves. But then, like I said, yeah, this is going to be a little different. And the reason why this is going to be different is obviously the season's done now. So, the winner is out there. And massive spoilers if you have not seen the season yet, because Matt wins, Matt wins, Matt wins, Matt wins. It feels so good to say. We've been holding that in for over a year. So Matt took the dub. And in this episode, we're actually going to be having an interview with potentially two runners up. We have one locked in right now, and we might see the other runner up, but we're going to see a runner up interview right after we talk about this episode. So, yeah, I think that's a structure we're going to go along with for here. And yeah, sorry it's so casual, but we're celebratory, we're happy. And Adam, I know you're holding back something, so just go say whatever you need.
Thank you. It's nice nice to be able to, but I mean, I'm going to try to sound not exactly repetitive to you, but it's going to sound like it. Yeah, like we came up with this idea, the two of us in our room. For those of you that don't already know, if we don't already mention enough, we were roommates at Rutgers for 2 years, and over 2 years ago now, we came up with a random idea. Hey, let's start a club at Rutgers to let people actually play Survivor. We knew of some other schools have done it, Michigan, Maryland, Boston, just to name a few. And Rutgers has a large enough student population where it makes sense. But we didn't, I guess the philosophy was we didn't think anyone else wanted to put in the work to make it happen. We just need, people wanted to play, but we needed someone to get that framework in place. And that ended up being us. And it took a lot of work, a lot of time out of our schedules. It became our schedule to an extent in terms of our extracurriculars. And I think you could agree with that, especially as we were picking up production. But everything that we've been able to do, obviously bringing in Max, meeting everyone on the cast, and some people who, including Max, who have become the e-board that has taken over for us, like to see longevity of the club. It's incredible. And the friendships that we've made from it, it just means the world to me. And CBS, I mean, they came to Rutgers in
Yeah.
December 24, a few months ago, and they gifted us the Survivor 47 life-size logo. It's insane. And obviously that's not all us, but the fact that they recognized our club just is so much validation for, like I said, what a crazy idea in our room started as. It turned into this, and just everything, the skills, the experience, everything I have gotten in the last few years running this organization beside you, being able to really launch it and finally have the full product to show for it is incredible.
Yeah, and I mean that's definitely a highlight of this whole thing, Adam. First of all, beautifully said. It's bittersweet. We put so much time, so much passion, so much effort into this, and to see it go away kind of just in like one weekend, to pretty much have our hands completely gone with it. Like you said, that longevity, like direct longevity for season two, but the potential longevity moving forward with the e-board and some of the season two contestants even expanding to other things, which maybe we can hint at the end, which is a really cool idea. Well, so okay,
Yeah. All,
we're,
all,
we're
all I'll
getting
say
way
is
too
that
ahead of ourselves.
we were able to that finale weekend last month in February. We also got to sit in on a shoot of a season two
Yes.
episode. So obviously not going to say what goes on during that,
Yeah.
but what I will say is the excitement we saw from the new cast as well as the current e-board containing Max, Kevin, Matt, and Logan, our new e-board for this year. Just the excitement. There was a more of a production crew than we had in season one, which is basically just
Definitely.
me and my iPhone. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean anything above that's a win, but really to see the excitement, the ideas, the fact that the club truly is in a good place is means the world, and it lets me breathe because you're right. It's hard to let go of it in a way, but we have so much other stuff going on now. I mean, I'm wearing
Yeah.
the Columbia T-shirt. I got to shamelessly plug that again.
Yeah.
That I'm doing a master's degree there, but it's it's hard
And
to
I
let
just
go, but
I just got
it's
in an
fulfilling.
acapella group today, so
Congratulations.
we're moving under our own stuff. And
Yeah, this
yeah,
is a celebratory recording right here. Nothing else but to talk about us.
yeah. So well, not okay. In the beginning, yes, but we're definitely gonna have to move on to talk about the actual finale because I bet that's what a lot of people are here for. And yeah, I guess now that you mentioned, yeah, huge shout out to the season two e-board for letting us crash that shoot. That was awesome. We can tell that you have a flow like we did. I know we've talked about this in our previous On the Raritan episodes, but after episode 4 or 5, we kind of had a system of how things worked. And although we didn't sit in on any other episodes, just seeing them function through that episode we did see, you could tell that they had their systems down pat and everything was smooth and concise. So
100%.
great job to you guys. We're so excited to see what you can have in the future. And we may give a little hint as to what some people in season two are planning, but we'll see. It's not a promise, but it's a possibility because that's what Rutgers Survivor was in the beginning. It was just a out of the blue idea, and they have an out of the blue idea. But all right, that's enough of that. Like I said, this is very casual, but Adam, I think it's time we talk about the finale. So, just a brief overview. How normal finales work for those of you who are unfamiliar is the voting out people part of the game is completely done now. What they have to do now is the finalists, sometimes it's a final two, sometimes it's a final three. What they do is they have to give a speech to the jury. So the very people that they helped vote out to try to convince them to write their name down to win the game. So the person at the final vote reading with the most votes wins. They don't get voted out. And so that's kind of the structure. And we took this as more going back to what the original seasons of Survivor were, because now I don't even know what they call it, but it's kind of like a group jury.
It's like an open forum. I don't know if there's a
Yeah,
name.
open forum. Yeah, whatever. No, we knew we had to bring back individual jury speeches because that's where the bread and butter is. So each contestant can get their say, can ask a question, can make a statement. So yeah, heading into this, I'll say a few things and I'll kind of let you jump in, obviously, but I just want to give an overview. We see heading into this, one of the interesting things that I saw was the fact that going before the actual speeches were written, this was not going to be a blowout game by any means. Each person, Ashi, Logan, and Matt, those are our final three, had somebody initially rooting for them going in. You had Kevin voting for Matt, you had Joe voting for Logan, and you had John voting for Ashi. Interestingly, Gia stated that she was torn. So already we can see a potential 1-1-1, which is, that's a very even distribution of power. So clearly going into this, it is anybody's game. I guess, Adam, did you have any thoughts on that opening or anything that kind of stuck out to you?
I mean, I really don't think there's anything else to be said. At the end of the day, really, there's three finalists. but only 5 jurors. We could have had up to 7. That's another thing to note, but 2 of them were not able to show up that day, which is no problem. We still appreciate your participation in Rutgers Survivor to begin with. But the 5 that did show up, that means every vote is even more important
Yep.
because depending on the splits and like you might only need 2 to 3 votes total to win it all.
Mhm.
So everything is even more vital. And I think that's what you see throughout the episode, them fighting for every individual vote, whether they think they have it locked in or not.
Yeah, and that's just so interesting to see because you in these opening statements, which I'm kind of going to move on to now, you kind of see 3 different strategies. Now, I'm not going to go deep and explain. I'll let you explain those, but I'll just state what I think they were. So, going into it, Matt stated that he played the best like overall game. He said he found the idol, he had the most immunity necklaces being worn, all these different things. Logan stated that he had the best social and strategic game, meaning making alliances, getting people to vote other people out. And Ashi said that she had an interesting take where she kind of went with the flow, and the flow happened to lead her to the final 3. And sometimes that is a viable strategy and more respectable than somebody who maybe played a game a different way. And we've seen that in real Survivor as well. So, Adam, that's kind of all I want to say because I want to give you a chance to say what with these opening speeches, what were you kind of feeling with that?
Yeah, I mean, in the moment, I think, and it's truly evident in the episode, but like when we were there, just filming it, you really didn't know who could win. It really was anybody's game up until the very end. I want to say that first and foremost. But yeah, in terms of each of the opening speeches, I thought they all did a really good job, better than I expected for all of them. Really, I mean, I like how are we supposed to know how their public speaking skills are? But everyone handled it like perfectly as well as you could. So just great job for the cast first off. But yeah, I think you hit the strategies with a nail on the head there. Ashi played a little bit of an under the radar game, but even admitted used the fact that she had Gia, her sister, to her advantage. Logan was really focusing on his strategic prowess, I think, as you said, being the one to create the alliance in that Orwin tribe and then take it to the end. Whereas Matt, you may not know from the surface what he necessarily did, but then when you put it all together like pieces of a puzzle, you realize he won immunities. He found the only idol in the game, and yeah, he did a lot of what you can do. So those are all 3 different games, but very valid arguments. And depending on what criteria you're using to vote for, any one of them can win.
Yes, and that's an important part to note is because the jury, they're not chess pieces. These are individual people who have different ideas on what they think the winner should be. Should the winner be the person who has the idol? It could be a simple one issue vote like that. Or is it somebody who is more strategic and manipulative, or someone who just found their way towards the end? We don't know. But before we move on to the jury speeches, which were really interesting, I think the one key part that I wanted to highlight through this was that Matt really took control in the beginning by just standing up during his opening statement. You can tell maybe even a little bit. I was kind of almost did like a take back in my chair because he introduced himself, with like strength and good public speaking skills. So from my perspective, I already thought as soon as he did that, he had a really strong foundation heading into these jury speeches, no matter what questions that they were asking. Um, yeah, and similar, Logan took that direction too. He stood up and he took a more, cool collective approach. He tried to say every little piece of his game out to the jury, hoping, that people would bite at it and say, yes, that is what we're looking for. So, yeah, I guess since I've kind of introduced a lot of stuff here, do you want to talk maybe a little bit about the basics of the jury speeches or what you remember sticking out?
Yeah. Do we want to go through all of them before we
Sure. I mean,
bring up
yeah,
our
if you just want
speeches?
to give a basic rundown, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
detailed.
Yeah, we can make it very simple, honestly. I don't remember who went first. I want to say Gia, but it was I think hers was the most surface level in terms of just congratulating everyone. I think she didn't want to stir the pot too early, especially with her sister being one of the final 3.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just how I interpreted it. And then I'm trying to think as close to the actual order as possible, but I might not get it.
It's all good.
Um,
Just say,
Joe, yeah, yeah. So Joe was next, and that went It was 15 minutes of the episode, but it was probably over 20 like
Yeah. It
in
was
real
like
life. That was
25 unedited, 25 minutes.
it was insane. So first off, credit to Joe for having like very articulate questions and being able to even prompt that. But then Matt and Logan going back and forth, that was the craziest thing. And Peter, I'm not sure if you remember, I was like holding the camera steady, but I was looking at you like, is this really happening?
Yeah. It was pretty much a
it
live
was
debate. It was a live debate. They were fighting for that.
it really was. It really was. And that's like what said to me once and for all that like we knew that people wanted to play, but that's where those two especially proved that they wanted this really bad.
Yeah.
And they knew only one of the two in that debate is going to win naturally, potentially, or neither of them. You never know at that time. So it's really like really interesting to see. And I love what Joe did at the end. I got to say that when he's like, close your eyes, let me know who you do you think you can get my vote? Can you get Jack's vote? And so on and so on to prove self-perception. That I absolutely loved. I've never seen that in Survivor. Correct me if I'm
Has
wrong.
that never been in? I thought he got that from previous season. No?
I mean, maybe he took something similar, but never like the close your eyes and do like the
Wow.
blind raise your hand.
Because
So like
that was good. That was a really, and he was
it,
really
it
self-perception. Yeah.
it was incredible. I loved it. And then another part that I loved actually. Now I'm gonna flip to the next person, John. He John's was more analogy based in my opinion, but I loved those analogies. I mean, maybe from a comedic aspect more than anything, but remind me what they were. It
Yeah,
was
okay. So I can jump. Yeah, I can jump in
yeah.
here. Yeah. John took the road to kind of do analogies. So he said that Logan reminded him of a frat party, which is basically like it's really fun, you have a good time, but when you wake up in the morning, you might not feel so good. So basically, in reference to his game, he's basically saying it was a really fun to play with you. You made a lot of cool moves, but at the end of the day, I don't know if you deserve my vote. Matt was the Livy Dining Hall, which was basically, a breadth of options. Overall, pretty good. So I guess in terms of his game, John was kind of saying,
We should also mention to people that don't know that Livingston is generally considered the best dining hall
yeah,
at Rutgers.
Livingston is considered the best dining hall. So John pretty much was going off of that, the fact that, like, yes, Matt, on paper, you sound like you would be the best. But when you leave Livy, and sometimes I had that too, sometimes the food was just okay. Not a
Yeah.
diss to the Rutgers cafeteria or whatever that is, but so that's what he was going for. And finally, he likened Ashi to a library. Now, initially, people might be like boring or stale or whatever, but what he was going off of more was quiet, but also like of value, meaning that her game was very quiet, very reserved, not out there sticking her head out there like to get poked or slammed down. Her game was very quiet, but it was the best thing that she could have done in the moment to carry herself to win. And more specifically, he's basically saying because of Ashi, Gia flipped to Warblin, not the other way around. So if Ashi wasn't as good as she was, Gia would not have flipped and they could not have carried themselves to the game, which is another interesting retrospective of this whole game is that, I mean, it's basically a pagonging, but it doesn't feel like that at all. I don't know if you like,
No.
even when we were filming it and we kind of knew like, oh, it's Kevin, oh, it's Jack. Oh.
We knew the possibilities, but I gotta say, and now that the season's over, we can say, I mean, final 8, it was a complete deadlock. Final 7, it was a 3-2-2 vote. Final 6, 3-2-1. We had 3 votes in a row where realistic. I mean, the tie is going to be exciting no matter what. But the final 7, final 6, those votes like could have just been like the easy knockoffs, and in a way they were in terms of who got eliminated. But with the way the vote splits and the different strategies went, it like you really did not feel that. Like it kept the whole season entertaining. I definitely have to say. But now we might as well go on to the last 2 jurors,
Yeah, I
Jack
was
and
going to
Kevin,
kind of
that dynamic duo.
Yeah, I was going to group them together, honestly, because they were pretty much just Matt stands. You know what I mean? Like they were pretty much.
Yeah, they were very pro Matt.
They were very pro Matt. But the interesting part was, what was, yeah, the interesting part was that, Jax was funny, but Kevin actually took a moment because, like I said, before we came into the jury speeches and everything, he said 100% my vote is for Matt. But during his jury speech, he admitted to Logan, hey, listen, after hearing what you've said, I can acknowledge that you did play this game and I can respect that. However, I feel like Matt played the more dominating game and deserved my vote. And Logan tried to like make comebacks with that, and we'll probably ask him what his reasoning was when. Oh, I just spoiled it. Okay, it's Logan. Well, I already said the winner, so Logan will be joining us after the break. Yeah. Anyway, regardless, um, but going off of that, Kevin, basically his main point was, um, why did you not try and get Matt out at Final Four? Now, I know what you might be thinking if you're used to the modern Survivor. What do you mean by that? Well, our Final Four was a little bit different. To get away from fire making, to get away from ties, we had the winner of the challenge get an extra vote, meaning that there was 5 votes. And I think the only potential for a tie would have been a 2-2-1, but we didn't see that. So basically, what that means is if 3 people gang up on the winner of that challenge, they're out and they can't do anything. So Kevin was just
Yep.
asking Logan, why did you not team up with Ashi and Gia to get Matt out? And Logan, as we'll hear from him later, he basically said, I tried, I really did, but the water got too hot and I knew if I pushed it any longer, I was going to get out, and I'd rather have a chance to plead my case here than die trying, getting out at Final Four. So, like I said, I kind of looped those 2 guys together. And yeah, I think that's all. Did you have anything else for those speeches?
No, I think that covers pretty much all of it. And honestly, with that being said, we might as well jump right into the next segment, shall we?
Well, I was going to say we could, yeah, the closing statements, right, and everything. Yeah.
Oh, I almost forgot. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
I'm getting
yeah.
so
The
eager.
episode's not over, man. Come on, come on. I know you haven't watched it in 3 weeks, and neither have I. But it's all good. Let's see. So yeah. So after all the jury speeches were given, also important to know, this is the first episode that has commercial breaks with yours truly. I felt like because okay, as I'm editing this episode, it's really
It's
long.
also the longest episode.
Yeah, it's an hour and 4 seconds. So I'm sure a
Yeah,
lot of
you
people
you
were
really
very.
needed those 4 seconds, didn't you?
Yeah, I really need those 4 seconds. A lot of people were very pleased that it wasn't an hour. But anyway, I feel like the pacing just needed to be broken up, and I feel like those commercial breaks, where Jeff comes on stage like apply to be on Survivor. I feel like those kind of help with the pacing actually to kind of break it up. So
And it gives that same vibe to your
yeah.
credit.
Oh, I tried to be cringe, but it's all good. But so anyway, we move on to the closing statements, and the closing statements are just like the opening statements, except instead of opening their statements, they close them. So what I mean by that is
Wow.
you could tell I was not English major in college. What the closing statements were is basically your last chance, kind of like in a jury or an actual trial, to say why you think you should win. Your final concluding statements. And Matt pretty much summed it all up as I played like he literally said, I don't know what more I could have done. I played super hard. I tried my best in everything. I got the idol. I had the necklaces. I won immunity challenges. I didn't get voted out. My name was written down once, and the person who wrote his name wasn't even present at the jury. So it obviously, no one saw him as the target, and a couple people labeled him as almost the Tony of this season, but in it, not in the like show offy
Mhm.
type, like
And,
a more
yeah,
hidden.
and one more quick thing to say about Madden, how he framed his closing speech, that he also really wanted to harp on the social relationships because, like, he could have, I think he said it in his speech also, he could have tried to play dirty, but at the end of the day, these are people that you're going to see on campus that you could be friends with. And that's the whole other dynamic that our game brought. And he correctly realized that if him or other people on the cast wanted to be part of the board for future seasons and help plan, which ironically is what he's helping to do right now. It's like you can't be a complete ass. It's simple as that. You have to have a certain social caliber too, on top of a strategic game, and that's the other thing that I just wanted to note that he highlighted, and I think he did a good job of striking that balance.
No, that's extremely important. I'm glad you mentioned that. To move on to the other two, Logan's basically, unfortunately for him, I would almost say he was a victim of a slight bitter jury, just because it seemed like in the face of it, no one really respected his game. And we may get into this a little bit more later, but basically, he was trying to take credit, for all the social relationships and the strategic votes. But a lot of people, like especially John on Warbland, was just not going along with that. He didn't really credit him for anything. So he was really trying to push that, yes, I did do this and I was a key player. And if I was not here, we, like us three, Warblin would not be on the final three today. So he tried really hard. And then the final one was Ashi. And what was her statement just, I hope everyone, I think it was just like good luck to everybody. And I best
Yeah,
wishes and I hope we can all stay friends.
I
Um,
believe so.
we're gonna go into the final vote soon, like real quick. But so kind of the standings are right now, just based off the jury speeches. Joe is a lock for Logan. Matt and Kevin, no, sorry, Jack and Kevin, sorry, are a lock for Matt. And John is a lock for Ashi. That's what it seems on the front of it.
And
However,
Gia
and
is a lock.
G's a
So
lock for
that means we thought it would be a 2-1 tie at
yes.
this point, and you can continue.
Yeah, but what you will see, and what we couldn't really air because it didn't fit in the episode, but is a crazy last minute play by one of the jury members that might have given Matt the win if he did not do it. And I guess it's time to talk about that now. So, Adam, okay, first of all, we will show a clip of context. That'll be the clip for the break that takes us into the interview.
Consider it the first ever Rutgers Survivor deleted scene.
Exactly. And it will do the actual explanation, the live explanation during the moment. But Adam, if you wanted to give a brief overview of what happened, because I know you're dying to say, and this is crazy. And I didn't know this happened until after the final votes were read for the winner. So, Adam, without further ado, what happened?
Yeah, so I also want to preface that neither of us knew until later on. We went out to dinner to celebrate with anyone on the cast who wanted to come, and we kind of got the rundown, the explanation of how that happened later on, and I think we both lost it. We were in shock. But yeah, basically, Kevin knew that John probably wasn't going to vote for Matt, and Kevin really obviously wanted Matt to win. So in some next level strategy, and correct me if I'm saying it a little wrong, Peter, at any point, but I believe Kevin told John that he was going to vote for Logan.
I
Right?
think it
Was
was
it?
Ashi because
No, because then that would give out. Oh, yes,
yeah,
that was it. My bad. My bad. Yes, Kevin actually said he was going to vote for Ashi, just to give her a runner-up prize or something, or I think to be unpredictable. That was how Kevin framed it. And John was shocked by this because he wanted to vote Ashi to give her a runner-up like prize essentially, but John didn't necessarily want Ashi to win. So in a last-minute attempt to not completely mess up the vote count and create a bad situation where the intended runner-up becomes the actual winner, John played it safe and switched his vote to Matt last second,
oh,
and Kevin obviously stayed true to Matt. So
and
Kevin,
we see Kevin in the most glorious, probably in all of Survivor I've ever seen, the most roasting moment ever. And you had the pleasure of recording it to be your last vote confessional.
it was the very last one. It was insane. What a
He
way to
writes,
cap it off.
he writes Ashi, and then he said, or sorry, he says, I'm going to switch things up. He writes Ashi. He shows it to the camera. He says, you know what? I spelled it wrong. Crosses out her name, writes Matt, and says, I'm voting for the only person who played the game. Bolts
So
back.
imagine I almost couldn't contain it. Like even when he was writing down Ashi's name, because like it was very evident in the edit that he did not want to vote for Ashi. He was honest, arguably the most bitter juror. So like that was my
You
response.
were
My
like
mouth
shocked, right? You were like,
literally
really?
dropped. And then I finally composed myself to get the shot for like when he's reading the vote and like wondering what he's going to say. And then he pulls that, and my jaw drops again.
It's so curious. I
And
think.
and
Oh,
and
sorry.
the fact that it was the last vote too. I mean, come on, keeping it crazy until the very end. I mean, all props to Kevin on that one.
Yeah, we're running out of time, so I'll make this brief. But I also think a key important factor was with that whole John situation. He thought Matt should have been higher placed than Logan. So if he
Mm-hmm.
voted Ashi and Kevin voted Ashi, I think Logan would have beaten Matt or at least tied him. But
Yeah, I
Matt,
think it would have gave Ashi the win, and Matt would have ended up in third.
yeah, which he
So
didn't want. So he
mhm.
really thought like in the hierarchy of his perspective, it should have been Ashi, Matt, Logan. And that I have to say, this might be the first time that a jury member completely out strategized the finale.
Like at the very end.
Yeah, like at the
Like,
very
yeah.
literally a guy who got voted out 3 episodes ago can made the game-winning move potentially for one of these players.
Mhm.
So
And we've seen that in real Survivor to an extent, like Ponderosa, everything behind the scenes, you hear stories. But I think to that point, we've never seen anyone on the jury bench seconds before they're about to vote whisper something that actually changes someone's decision.
yeah,
That might be a Survivor first.
yeah. So like I said, this season insane. We're so happy that these contestants were ready to play. And that just shows even if you're on the jury, you can make game defining moves. So we only have like 5 minutes left before this shuts us off, and we have to introduce the next segment. But I guess yeah, we're headed in now. We're tallying up the votes, and a couple notes here. The walk in for me to come back, one of my favorite cinematic shots of the season. I forget who filmed that, whether it was you or Max, but like me coming in
Uh,
the
yeah.
votes. And similarly, going back, the other cinematography, whatever moments, was the intro sequence, with the nice song in the background. That was awesome. And the introduction to the whole finale, too. So I felt like this episode was very, very cinematic. Okay. All right. So it appears that we have lost Adam. It's all right. He's going to come right back. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to have our runner-up interview with Logan. We're going to delve deep into his mind, what he was thinking during the game, not even just the game, like how he thought about the club in general, and maybe even a little bit about season 2. So for right now, enjoy this never before aired clip of John saying what we just described with Kevin and how he convinced John to write Matt's name down. Kind of ingenious, kind of crazy. But all right, guys, we'll be right back.
Okay, so I'm actually kind of really mad right now, and this is why I voted Kevin out. How do I open this? Because, okay, so here's what's going on. I want to vote Ashi to win, and I know Gia's voting Ashi to win. So that'd be 2, and then we know, for whatever reason, Joe thinks Logan's a mastermind, so he's voting Logan. And then it was supposed to be, we know Jack is voting Matt, and we know, well, here's the thing, Kevin thinks it's funny to vote Logan because he wants a tie. But a tie is going to happen if I vote Ashi, and then it was supposed to be 2 votes for Mo. But now the problem is, if Kevin votes for, what's his name, Logan, then it's a 2-2 tie between Logan and Ashi, and Matt deserves to win. But I just want to give Ashi second over Logan. So now I'm in a stalemate of I don't know what to do, because now, if I vote Ashi and he votes Logan, Logan wins this game, and I don't want that to happen. But if I vote Matt, then I feel bad because then Ashi gets 3rd place and she doesn't deserve 3rd place. Oh my god. I don't know what to do. I really, this is me thinking in real time. I really don't know what to do. Alright. You know what? You owe me some of that gift card for screwing me over. I guess if I had seen the email 2 days earlier, I'd be sitting at the final tribal council. Probably winning, so that hurts even more. But you know what, Ashi, you deserve second over Logan. Logan took credit for so much stuff that was not his, and that was Matt's doing, and completely ignored the fact that there were 2 other people in the alliance, and not just the 3 of them, and not just him. Because quite frankly, had he, oh my god, Kevin just keeps screwing everything up. Had Kevin, not flipped at the final 6 tribal, Logan is probably not at the final tribal. So you know what? He's talking a big game for someone whose position was the whole time. So, Matt, congratulations.
All right, everybody, we are back with On the Raritan. I hope you enjoyed that never before seen clip, but this is kind of the meat and potatoes of this episode. We are very fortunate to have Logan, one of the runner-ups of season 1, and he's going to give us a little bit about not just his place in the finale, like the other episodes are kind of, but his whole thoughts throughout the game of the season. Because Logan, I do have to say, man, that as a strategic person who loves strategy, I definitely respected your game going into that finale, dude, I thought it was a very like front battle between you and Matt. I really thought either of you could take it out in the end. Obviously you're the runner, you're the runner up. So that didn't end up panning out. But like I said, man, the utmost respect. Although some of the jury members, and we talked about that before, maybe you can delve a little bit into this, didn't see it that way. I personally didn't. I think Adam, you shared the same sentiments with that.
Yeah, I really have to say, I mean, going into that that final tribal, me and Peter, we like to kind of make our predictions. We obviously don't know what's going to happen, but just for fun of it, we're like, well, can this happen? Will this scenario? Blah blah blah. And we really thought it was going to end up being the heavyweight battle, and we saw that throughout final tribal. You guys going at it, which I assume we'll talk about. You guys going at it for 20 minutes straight at one point, but it was definitely no shortage of that heavyweight battle. It's unfortunate to see it come up a little short, but we really appreciate you playing. Seriously.
No, thank you guys. Like, thank you guys for planning this and having this play out. It was such a blast to play, and especially now being on the e-board now on the other side of it. Like, I know the amount of like hard work that goes into making a game like this, making sure it runs well. So
yeah,
utmost respect to you guys as well.
Yeah, and I was going to say, talk about your place in the season. Obviously, you took a more, behind the scenes role this year compared to last year when you were a contestant. You're on the e-board right now, so for season 2. So obviously, we're not going to spoil anything. But how have you liked it so far? Like, kind of continuing the club into a second season.
It's been an absolute blast. Obviously, not going to spoil anything. We got the little teaser at the end of season 1.
Yep.
But this season 2 has been incredible. If you like season 1, season 2 is definitely going to live up to the hype. From the time we're recording this now, the finale for season 2 is going to be filmed next week. So we're about to have another winner of Rutgers Survivor. So yeah,
and you're gonna have to keep it. You're gonna have to keep that secret for a year. It's gonna eat you alive.
Yes.
Welcome to the club.
I might accidentally say it to. I said it to 3 people accidentally. Luckily, they didn't really care about Rutgers Survivor, so it didn't matter. It's hard to keep, and it's easy just for it to like Freudian slip of the tongue. But all right. I think it's time now. We get to talk about your game. Like I said, I respect it a lot from the strategic side, from all that. But before we talk about like the finale, I guess just going into this season 1, what were your expectations? Like what were you thinking going in?
I didn't really know what to think. Like, obviously, I've been a fan of these games since I was a little kid. Like, I grew up watching Survivor, watching Big Brother. So I wanted to play well. I dive into the strategy. I listened to podcasts, all that. So I was hoping I'd do well. I'm naturally just a very introverted person, so I didn't know how it would pan out. But thankfully, I was able to kind of like build a group, kind of work my way and to the end of the game. And even though I came up short, like I'm happy with the game I played.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Adam, do you have any questions for him about beginning or anything?
Yeah, no. Well, I actually really like you mentioned, just what were the expectations? Because like I feel like we haven't really asked anyone that, like what going into everything. I mean, like I guess the best question I have is like once we said you like when we all called everyone, including you, like that you were on the cast, did you immediately like just come up with a strategy, like you wanted to do it a specific way because you didn't know what tribe you'd be on, who else was going to be there? Like what was the game plan going in, if you had one at all?
So my game plan is kind of similar to the way I executed the game. I needed to find allies really fast, like build a coalition that had enough votes. I wasn't sure if it was going to be like a tribe of 6, tribe of 5, or whatever. So I ended up doing that, making those 2 final twos with Ashi and Matt, and then forming our 3-person group. And I feel like I was very concerned throughout the game that I was like being left out of things, but I'm glad to know that like I had some level of control throughout the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess for me, I also kind of wanted to expand because for me, the couple key points in your season, were obviously and I kind of agreed with you. I know we're jumping all over the place. This interview is a lot more casual than our other ones, but you mentioned how that you did create the alliance between Ashi, Matt, and yourself, and I completely agree with you. I think you were the key player in that. So that was one of your key moments. I also thought Matt entrusting you with the idol information was the key moment, and you surviving Kevin's vote out. Because I mean, going to be honest, there's a slight chance that could have been you. So either if you wanted to maybe expand on that, or were there any other moments that I just didn't list that you thought for yourself were also big key moments in your game?
Of course, yeah. I think that final six round was one where I probably had the least amount of information what was really going on until after it, like watching it back. I do think like I was in jeopardy there, but I think the one saving grace was having my trio, like really locking in Ashi and really locking in Matt. I feel like no matter what, even if Kevin like voted correctly and it went to a 3-3 tie, I feel confident it would have gone to Rocks. We can ask Ashi about that. I don't know if it actually would have, but I do feel confident that it would have gone to Rocks.
Yeah, and I know from my perspective, and I think Adam as well, we did not think that they would get someone to flip on you. So most likely, if Kevin voted correctly, just by chance or not out of spite, it probably would have gone to Rocks, and you would have been safe either way.
Yeah.
That's another testament to your game. And I guess I want to preface your whole entire game too. Was have you had experience like before this with online Survivor?
Absolutely not. This is my
Really?
first
Okay.
season ever. I ended up playing
Oh, really?
an org. Yeah, so I ended up playing an org after the fact, and that was a lot of fun too. But
Yep,
this is my
the
first
same one that
experience.
that that
Kind
I
of
did.
like-
The same. Friends, I did the
Yep.
next season.
Yep, Holodorgs,
Yeah.
Joe from our
Exactly.
season
Yep.
helps run
Shout
it.
out Joe for
Shout out
letting
Joe.
us know about it. But sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's all good. So yeah, this is my really like first experience like playing any games like this in real life. Like I always like thought about it. Like of course, like if I was in this position, what would I do? If I was on this season as this person, like how would I get to the end of the game? So, but this is my first time actually doing any of that.
Wow. Okay. That I thought you
That's
were
cool.
like Joe and you like did like multiple games before this. Well, in that respect, then, dude, you absolutely killed it. Then I mean, you got to the end, and
Thank you.
especially like you just kind of
Yeah,
self-admitted
like that's
that you do tend to be a little bit more
incredible.
introverted. That's a huge like congrats to you for getting that relationships built and taking it to the end. Yeah. Adam, did you have something to
Yeah,
expand?
I also didn't even note. I also just maybe this was my perception, but I didn't really notice you being introverted, if I got to be honest. And maybe that's a compliment to you, maybe going out of your comfort zone. But like honestly, I didn't see it. I would not have assumed that you considered yourself to be an introvert.
Thank
But
you. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, but
yeah,
oh,
you can go. You can go.
sorry.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's like this is such like a passion of mine that I'm kind of able to talk about it more and kind of like fight hard for it because I do really love this kind of thing. So that's all I wanted to say.
Fair. That makes total sense. And like we could tell that, like, granted, everyone who applied or obviously really wanted to play, but like I think Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we even said like you stood out as one of those where like you could really see the passion, like in that like quick 1 minute audition video that we sent out right before gameplay started. So like yeah, you could tell. But I'm just thinking at any point in the game. This is actually a question that I've had. So like earlier on pre-merge, we see you strategizing with Boston Green, and maybe it was the edit, maybe it's my own fault for not realizing, but just out of curiosity, it seemed like you were willing to be aligned with him. Was he ever in your true plans, or what was there a shift when you realized that maybe he was trash talking the other tribe a little too much? Like what was your perspective going into that round?
So absolutely, I actually did want to work with Boston Green. So he's such a big character that I thought he would be like a good shield in front of me if we made it to the merge because he's always, him and Jack were getting like back and forth on the other tribe. So I actually did really want to work with him. The only problem is that he was actively going after Matt. So even like in that episode 2, between our interactions, I was trying to inch him and be like, hey, what about John instead? But he was like very dead set on getting Matt, even if he was getting confused with who Matt was and who John was. And like, he kept saying the name Matt, and I'd already locked in a 3-person alliance with Matt and Nashi. So one thing that Boston Green did come up to me with during that episode was a 3-person alliance between Ashi, myself, and him, which that was something that was really appealing to me, especially if John could have gone there, I could have kind of played the middle between Matt and Boston Green, but he was so adamant on going after Matt that I had already invested so much. I had to go for him at that point.
Yeah, so maybe that's a lesson for season 2 is obviously like you said, you're recording the finale, so it's done. But for season 3, guys, maybe it's a good idea to not take that spiteful route. Like, I need to get this person out. We saw that with what you just said with Boston, because who knows? Maybe if he let that go, it could have been you, Matt, and Boston Green all the way to the end. You never know. And like I said, with Kevin voting Ashi just pretty much out of spite, kind of gave up that chance of a potential for him to be safe. So for season 3, maybe it's something to consider. But yeah, so with that,
Yeah.
I think it's time we actually start talking about the finale. So this is, why we're here. But yeah, so I
Wait,
guess
Peter, actually, I have one more. Peter, I have one more question, if that's okay, prior to the finale.
Sure, go for
Speaking of other, speaking of other dynamics with other cast members, I mean, we definitely saw you going at it with Kevin at the final 6, and yeah, you were the one that received votes from Kevin and Jack at the final 7. Like, what do you think it was that, like, was there a beef, like a legitimate one? Like, what caused it? I guess, like, how did you manage to stay on the right side of it? I'm just curious your perspective from all of that, like how you felt like as the game was going on, if it was going to be a detriment to your game.
So as the game was going on, I didn't necessarily see them going against me like specifically. I feel like they were just pissed that they had lost Joe. They were on the bottom now, and that they had to like kind of like scrounge their way to the top. So I know I took it as a compliment that they were going after me. I viewed it as respect more than beef than anything else. And even though they didn't vote for me in the end, but I think, but there's no ill will there. Definitely, I respect both of them as game players.
Yeah, and I could see that too. When we did the finale watch party, we had a couple season 1 contestants show up. Obviously, the season 2 e-board was there, but Jack made an appearance, and despite what people may think watching the season, I've at least seen that there's really no hostility between anybody. Maybe it's a little bit like, oh, what would have happened if I done that? But I think everybody respects everybody else as an individual, and that's really all you can take from this game. Is it's a shared experience. It can be a stressful experience, but overall, I'm sure if you had the option to do this all again and start, you would do it in a heartbeat, probably.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So, all right.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, and for a college club, like you can't take it too seriously, because I mean, if you let like just other like classmates just get to you like that, I mean, I don't want to say you shouldn't be playing, but it's probably not the best mentality to have. So I do appreciate that everyone has, even if they aren't necessarily like best friends, that everyone can respect each other.
Yeah. All right. We need to start talking about the finale. So I guess going into this finale, I say this the whole time. How are you feeling? What did you feel going into this finale? What was your mentality? What were you thinking potentially about the votes? What you were going to say? What was your strategy coming in? Because I had my perspective from the previous segment that we recorded.
So my perception going in was that it's going to be close. Like, we played very similar games, all 3 of us. So I feel like it could have gone any which way. I tried to get Matt out the final 4, didn't work. And that's because I knew he was a threat. So going in, I wanted to kind of distinguish myself by like being very aggressive, and just something I wasn't really doing throughout the game, and kind of just like laying out reason after reason after reason, like why I feel like I played a better game than Matt and Najee, to try and stand out. And I thought that might be respected within the jury that we had, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay, well that's good for me, because Adam, that's pretty much what I said. He was very kind of case in point, laid out all the facts pretty much from beginning to end, from what I remember being there. Yeah, so Adam, did you have any questions about the opening of the finale?
Not really. I say we go right into it.
All right, sure. So I guess now we're talking about the jury speeches. There were obviously key moments that stuck out to us as people, recording it or me hosting. But for you, were there maybe a couple key moments in someone's speech or or elements of it that completely surprised you or made you like really want to fight for this title?
So moments that surprised me, that's a good question. So I feel like the first like oh shit moment was when John came up, and he was way more against me than I expected him to be. I wasn't fully convinced he was going to vote for me, but it seemed very much like one-sided. It's definitely not you. And so I was like, okay, I need to really like I step on the gas here and like try and fix things, was my perception.
Yeah, I was saying damage control. Like that's what it kind of felt like. And to me, honestly, like I said, in terms of what I was saying, I felt like that was a little bit unwarranted because John kind of went in detail, like, a lot of people in the alliance didn't really credit you with things, and I kind of like disagreed with him on that stance. But obviously, I'm not the one voting for the finale, so it's kind of interesting. And I told Adam this, everyone, it's not a chessboard. Everyone has their own inkling as to who they think should win, and it's really just about being able to persuade those. Well, because it's a jury of five, you only need three people to take it, and the smaller the jury is, the harder that is. So that was the thing that surprised you. I guess. Okay. Kind of the big thing in the room was you and Matt definitely had a talk back and forth where you were trying to, I wouldn't say one up another, but more just like you're trying to prove each other's case. You're saying, well, I did this, but no, you really did that, and I did this. Yeah, could you tell me maybe a little bit more about that and kind of like how you felt maybe through that kind of like I wouldn't call it tense, but more just like I said, you were both standing your ground, kind of like,
Mhm.
immovable object meets unstoppable force. That's kind of how I in my brain was thinking about it.
Yeah, so again, like I feel like immediately, like between these first few questions, that I'm on the back foot. I gotta keep going for it and not really like give up any ground here. So, when Matt was talking about his game, I had to come back and be like, all right, well, you may not know this, but I was trying to target you at the final four, trying to throw everything at the wall to like
Yeah.
see, to make it seem like I knew what was going on more than he was, even though we played such similar games that it was kind of hard to do that. But I think the one thing that I would have done differently in regards to like jury management and all that is that I think I should have really tried to sell my case before the final tribal council, because my perception was that if within my speech I can maybe win some people over, like people may not be fully convinced yet, but I think a lot of people went into that like with their minds made up, and they kind of had this perception that was existed for like weeks or months at that point. And a 5 minute speech from me and like answering a couple questions isn't going to undo like
That's a
weeks
good
of
point.
feeling a
Yeah,
certain
that's
way.
a good point. Yeah. Um, Adam, I know I had something else, but did you
Yeah,
have
you go right ahead. Like you fire away.
okay. Yes. So let me think. Okay. So yeah, like I said, that is a really good point to bring up. Yeah, like because these at this point, due to scheduling conflicts, we recorded final four in January, and then we had to wait a whole nother month to do the finale. So there is definitely that time gap there. And I'm blanking on a question. I'll cut this, but let
Okay,
me think of it.
I could go then in that case.
All right.
So
Adam, you have a question, so go right ahead.
yeah, I mean this is probably echoing Peter's last question a little bit, but just curious, was there any particular one? Like obviously, Kevin, for example, was very critical of you. So like, was there at any point where maybe you knew you weren't getting someone's vote, but did you ever like? I don't want to say give up, but like, when did you think that not when you might not have gotten it? Is what I'm getting at.
So I had a feeling that I was cooked pretty early on. Like I'm gonna be honest. Like I had the feeling it was like, okay, reading the room here,
It's
this isn't
not.
really going my way.
And I
It's
think
not
you
looking
acknowledged
good.
that during your closing speech, actually. But
Yeah. At that point, I was hoping maybe I could get Kevin, maybe Jack, because my perception going in was that, Jack and Kevin were probably leaning more towards Matt. Ashid obviously got Gia. And I was thinking maybe I can get like Joe and John. So might be like a 2-2-1, like best case for me. Maybe I can win over one of Kevin or Jack if I go like really aggressive, because they're such bold game players. I thought if I played kind of similar in that way, like really went out front, maybe I could win one of them over.
Mhm.
So, and that was another thing that I did. I kind of tried to plan for a tie. Like I was having conversations with Ashi and being like, yeah, if it is a tie, I'm with you 100%. It's you and me, like above all else. So
mhm.
Yeah,
That's the other thing I was wondering if you actually planned for that contingency or not. But you answered that right there. So
yeah. I actually, now that I remember what I was going to say, I had a small critique of your opening speech that I actually think, I don't know if it, because like what you just said about how people kind of have these preconceived notions before coming in. But the one thing you said that made me go, I don't think you should have said that, is somewhere in there you said, and that's why this alliance of three kind of carried me. Like you said the word carried me in your speech. And I, from my perspective, I felt like that was not probably the best thing you could have said, because that kind of sets up the fact that while yes, I created it, they did all the work to get me here. So I don't know if you remember saying that or what your thought. I just feel like the word carried, and maybe you're right. Maybe these people, the jury had preconceived notions and they weren't going to vote for you anyway for some reason. They just didn't think that your game was respectable in their eyes. But like I said, from my perspective, that kind of from a neutral person who I didn't know who to vote for, that is something I might not have said.
No, yeah, I feel like I could definitely have used a better word there besides carry to make it seem like, I could be like, I was in the driver's seat, like taking this alliance to the end. Maybe I should have said something like that.
Yeah.
But credit where credit is
yeah, I definitely remember.
It's the heat of the moment. So, I mean, like,
Exactly,
I hopefully everyone acknowledges that, like, you guys are both nervous. So, I mean, it makes sense. I wouldn't necessarily blame you for it.
So I guess this is just a warning then for the season 2 people, for the finalists who are there. Be careful with your words in your final speech. They could carry a lot of weight. That's all I'll say with that. But if they're listening, yeah, I guess we can kind of move on because the closing statements, like you said, unfortunately, you felt like you were cooked. To quote you, but like I said, to be honest, I still thought there's a chance because there are 5 jury members. So if you got one person and just the chance of getting another, you're guaranteed either to lose by 1 or tie. So you would still kind of have that. And ultimately, yeah, what ends up happening is, as we discussed previously, the move by Kevin to kind of screw things up here. I guess because we dissected it and we didn't tell you this, but the break clip is actually going to be John discussing what Kevin told him and how he had to manipulate his vote. What is your perspective kind of on that take of that?
Really interesting to see strategizing coming from the jury. I feel like
is it illegal? Is it borderline illegal? I don't know.
Is it illegal? I feel like they should have been strategizing like that when they're in the game. Maybe they would have gone home. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But
from that point of view, I like I said, for better or for worse, that I think is the first time I've ever seen a jury member like strategize a game defining move. I don't know if you guys will allow that.
It's unprecedented.
It is unprecedented.
We'll call it unprecedented.
Look, it seems like John was the puppet master, but Kevin was his puppet master.
Exactly. And I didn't, because Kevin, as soon as Gia flipped, he was treating this game like a total joke. Like, at least from behind the camera. I don't know if you guys could sense that in the episodes, but Kevin just was out there to kind of just cause chaos. All that with his crazy idol play, or fake idol that he was doing. But yeah, no, to think that he took it so seriously, he's like, well, I could just force John's hand here. And hey, it ended up changing the game, and that might have given Matt the win, definitely. So that's kind of crazy. So it's just, I guess it's always important, and you see this in seasons like spoilers, heroes versus villains, spoilers. Russell on paper played the craziest, most dominant game up until that point, but people hated the way how he played. Not saying that they hated the way that you played, but they just, for you, like I said, they just didn't give you credit. I wouldn't say that they objectively didn't like it, but for Russell, they really hated the way how he played the game, thought he was an evil person, like crazy stuff. And they didn't think he deserved the win, and they didn't give him the win, even though as a viewer, everyone thought he did. So it's just kind of crazy like that jury management is something that I don't think they really, well, now they're doing a better job because, they do the jury interviews in current Survivor. But, it's definitely a part of the game that a lot of people just don't think about because they're just thinking of how do I get there? And that's kind of what Matt's mentality was, moving to the end. But all right, because we only got a little bit of time here. Let's see. I guess just, the votes. And, it ends up being a 3-1-1. So you did get a vote. You got Joe's vote. And yeah, I think you guys even said, or I think Joe said during his vote out confessional that if you guys were on the same tribe, you would have been like 2 peas in a pod to start because you both have that strategic mindset. Like you quoted you didn't know it at the time, but Joe was talking about an Onion Alliance in his interview for On the Raritan. So, you basically have the same mindset going in. So that would have been really interesting to
Yeah.
see if you were on the same tribe. And I think we purposely put them not because we were like, they both give us the strategic.
Yeah, I think we both viewed you guys, like you said, you wanted to play really strategic games. I think that's probably why we thought you played a bunch of other games in the past, because you seem so confident on like the strategic aspect of the game that I think we basically said, oh yeah, Joe and Logan, they're basically the same person.
Yeah. But like I said, the results came in. Matt took the dub. You did not, die trying. I mean, you did die trying, you know what I mean? Like you gave it your all. And like I said, I thought a lot, to be honest with you, I thought a lot of the jury's points kind of felt a little, I wouldn't say misguided, but I personally didn't understand them. Would I have voted for Matt? Probably, but you gave a really strong case, and I can always respect that. And I guess
Yeah, but I also have to.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I just want to say, and this is definitely a generalized question, but with all that being revealed at Final Tribal, you obviously not winning. I guess I'm curious. You said at the top of this you were happy with your game, and you should be. But is there anything that you think you would change, or even would be able to change, considering the circumstances is such a small cast to begin with?
Yeah, so I feel like probably the two things is one of them I mentioned earlier was like talking to more of the jurors outside the game before Final Tribal Council, like kind of explaining or just even talking casually with them. Like again, that's kind of I'm very introverted, so if it wasn't talking about game, like I have a hard time talking to people about stuff. But I think the other thing is I would have gone way more like stepping on the gas, Final Four, like trying to convince Giannashi, be like, it needs to be Matt. Like I tried to go for it, and Gia kind of went back to Matt, and I was able to pivot and get her out. But I feel like at that point, I just need to commit, go all in on a move.
Yeah, because I guess though part of that though is hindsight, because you didn't know that the jury felt that way at that time about your game. So for all you knew, your strategy was better to just not put on the gas and just get yourself to the finale and present your case. I guess because we've done this every episode, need to stay consistent. I just want to say, because of Kevin's crazy move, I think he has to be the fan favorite of this episode. I mean, come on, like the crazy.
You're really giving it to Kevin in front of me.
Well, I mean, like I don't
dare
know.
you.
What
to
do
be
you
fair,
want?
it gave me second place, so I'm not complaining.
Okay, see, so
look, give it to Kevin.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So in my opinion, I would just have to give, because like I said, it just came out of nowhere, came out of left field, and for me, it's going to be one of those lasting moments that I don't think I'll forget about the season. But like Adam mentioned, and like you mentioned, the season ended, and like we said before in the beginning of this, you took on a role for season 2, and I'm sure you're having a blast. What's your official role again? I'm sorry, I forget.
I am the treasurer.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah. But obviously you're helping behind the shoots as well, camera angles, somewhat directing, obviously. And we also said that we crashed one of the recent episodes, which is awesome. So personally, thank you to you and the rest of the e-board for having us opportunity, having us see you guys, be in that flow, because we could tell that you guys had your systems down like right away. You guys, you were.
It was so cool to see, and I said this earlier on before we brought you in, but it validated everything we did to see how smooth it was and how much passion there was, both on the crew side and with the new contestants. I mean, it was awesome.
Yeah.
No, thank you guys. Honestly, we couldn't have done it. Like, you guys built the foundation. We're just trying to build from there. Like, that's the whole thing.
And speaking of, I can't give away much, but I can't say much because I don't want to make any false promises. I don't think I have clearance for the season 2 e-board, but Rutgers Survivor might be bigger than we ever expected. I will leave it at that for now. Might be. And hopefully you guys will see what I mean in the very near future. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to do some really cool things. And, Rutgers Survivor was just an out of the blue idea. And we've been hearing that some season 2 people may have some out of the blue ideas as well. So we're very excited to see what they do. And I guess because there's only 4 minutes left and we need to do an outro, but Logan, in this is there anything else you want to say about the finale, your game, the season, anything that you want to, just preach about here?
You know what? Like, if you're on the fence of playing one of these games, like whether it be College Survivor, Real Survivor, whatever show, like go for it, man. Like it's so much fun. Like it was a great time, even though I came up short. Like who cares? Like it was a really fun ride to get there, and to be able to actually play one of these strategy games like in real life was really fulfilling.
All right. Thank you very much, Logan, for spending your time with us. Yeah, I know things are busy, with midterms, with graduating because you're a senior this year, right? So that's awesome.
Mhm.
Congratulations, man. I hope you have a blast in May, and you topped off part of your Rutgers experience these last 2 years with Rutgers Survivor. You played, like I said, an absolutely amazing, respectable game, a fantastic game from my point of view, and I couldn't be more thankful that you were on this season one cast. So with that being said. This is Peter Slattery. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Logan, very much. This is On the Raritan. It's redundant with your host, Peter Slattery. Slattery, wow. But we will see you next time. See you guys.